next type is geminate verbs. Page 180 in your books. Please get familiar with these 4 paradigms on page 180. They're not important as far as memorization is concerned, but you have to be familiar with them. And read the notes on each of these types of verbs, because they will basically point you to a good direction as far as distinction between one type and the other type, and some helpful remarks on the type of verb. How is it easier to distinguish one from the other? Biconsonantal verbs, these are a little bit easier because they're easier to recognize. They're the ones that contain only 2 letters, although they retain their lexical second vav or yod in the conjugation, so that might be confusing or might be helpful for some. With the imperfect and related conjugations, a medial vowel letter is found in every form, so that is very close to a lexical form of that verb, and is easier to find in the dictionary. Let's look at some of these. There's a shurek class, like in come. He arose. It will be actually in the imperfect yakum. He will arise. And the lexical form is kum, retaining the second shurek consonant and the vowel at the same time, to arise. And it should be translated as to arise because this is actually infinitive what? Construct. Because for biconsonantal verbs, lexical form is infinitive construct. It's not third person masculine singular as for all the other types. There's a B class which has a hirek yod, like in sham, he placed. Yashim will be he will place, and comes from shim. You see how yod, hirek yod is appearing in a lexical form. In a third person masculine singular, it will be just sham, as opposed to shim that we see here. And that becomes clear where that yod went, basically dropped out as we went into a third masculine singular. And there is a holem vav class, like in the verb ba, he entered. Yabo, or yavo, he will enter, and comes from bo, to enter. So these are only 3 types, 3 classes. There's also another one, first yod verbs. In terms of the imperfect inflection, there are 2 types of first yod verbs. With type 1 verbs, the first consonant of the verbal root drops off in every form. The first consonant of the verbal root drops off in every form. That means yod disappears. With the type 2 verbs, the first root consonant is seemingly preserved as a vowel letter. So let's look. Well, we won't look at the paradigms. You can probably find them. First yod is on page 183. And you see that yod drops out and its place takes what? Tau with a sere underneath it. Yeshev, teshev, teshev, teshvi, eshev, yeshvu, teshavna, teshvu, teshavna, neshev. So the yod drops out, and then now you have to find out what is the root. It's not teshev, it's supposed to be yashav, yashav, okay? First noon, well, that's a good one too. There are 2 types of these verbs. Type 1 verbs have a holem stem vowel. Type 2 verbs have the pathak stem vowel. It's a reoccurring theme in a few other types. Holem and pathak. And these are listed on your page 184. Yipol, tipol, tipol, tipli, epol, yiplu, tiplen, tipolna, tiplu, tipolna, nipol. It's one of the types. That's the type 1. That's the one with a holem vowel. And the next type is doubly weak verbs. You see the whole paradigm on page 185. 6 types of doubly weak verbs. And what are those types of verbs? That's basically if it's a first guttural and a third guttural, or first guttural and third hey. So they have double weakness as far as types of verbs are concerned. They're not also to be memorized, just to be familiar with. Don't get stressed out too much on these verbs, because we'll have plenty of chances to go over them and use them in the exercises. They're kind of introduced in the same chapter for a strange reason, as if it simplifies things. In Lambden's textbook that we studied last year, or the year before last year, they're actually all presented in different chapters. For every type of verb, different chapter. So in this book, they're all presented in one, because they want you to kind of get a grasp of the imperfect weak verbs in one chapter. Otherwise, it becomes so much of a confusion that you won't be able to carry on intelligible conversation about them.
Is there a logical reason why a first noon gets dropped out? I mean, the gutturals I can understand because they can't carry their own.
There is not.
They just do it.
It's just the prerogative of this type of verb. First noon is always considered to be a weak noon. And the homework is on your PowerPoint. Memorize paradigms on page 188. Let's select 2 out of these to make your life easier.
Out of which, 96 and 97?
On 188, I want you to memorize third het and third aleph. 2 middle columns. 188. It says paragraph 1623, verbal paradigms to be memorized. I want you to memorize 2 middle columns. Third het and third aleph. And please pay attention that the first column from your left is just for comparison purposes. It's a strong paradigm, so I'm not counting that as a middle. So you have third het and third aleph. And of course your vocabulary section, and then the exercises are listed on the board as well. Any questions on this chapter? Everything is pretty simple and